Go. Welcome, George and Panga. Some know you as George the poet, spoken word performer and author. What is the meaning of Mpanga?
Thank you for your very warm welcome. Mpanga actually means cockerel, the rooster, in our culture. But it is a name that is tied to my clan. So within our kingdom, our families are grouped into clans.
Mm,
So you hear the name Mpanga and you know that I'm from the clan Fumbe.
mm. At what age did you first publish?
Mm, I think 24. I'm 34 now, 10 years ago.
Mm. And did you self-publish or did someone else publish with you?
No, I was published by Penguin Books at that time.
Mm. And would you ever now want to self-publish?
Yeah, I'm very interested in self-publishing. The reason my books have all been released under major publishers is because they approached me. But the more I get into writing my books, the more I realize that one day I might need to self-publish for a story that I don't intend to sell to a major publishing house.
Mm. What inspired you to become an author?
That's a really good question, Gloria. Um, do you ever talk to yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I'll just be talking to myself and these ideas will be circulating in my mind and it just makes sense for me to
Mm.
put them together. And you don't realize it, but all those thoughts become your writing.
Yeah. What we know you have a podcast, so what inspired you to start this podcast?
Well, before I was doing podcasting, I was a recording artist, which meant I released songs and I was working towards an album. But I really wanted to release longer material than a song. I wanted to release something that was at least 15, 20 minutes. And podcasting was the only thing that made that possible.
Mm. And did you ever have any setbacks when you tried to do this? Any challenges?
Um, it's very time consuming. So if you don't have much time, it's a problem. In the early days, not everyone
Mhm.
believed in the vision. That's not a setback to me because I'm the one that has to do the work. And I was confident that once I do the work, you will see what I meant. So just time and commitment.
Yeah. And we know making a podcast is very difficult, as in you have to get the studio, you have to get the radio that wants to put the podcast on. So how did you do it? And referring, how long did it take you to get the podcast up and running?
All right, Gloria, I'm going to tell you a secret. For me, it wasn't difficult. It was hard work, but it wasn't difficult. What I mean is, the process was actually quite straightforward. I wrote some stuff, just like I write books and I write poems. I wrote some long form poetry, some poetry that captured some of my ideas. I slotted some music in there, some music that I was listening to that inspired some of the ideas behind the podcast. And I just had fun. That's why it wasn't difficult. But it was hard work because I was really trying to make it something that sounded special and something that made you want to listen.
Mm.
So other than that, it wasn't it was as difficult as I made it, which
Mm.
was fun.
How do you stay motivated and continue to innovate in your work?
Mm. Well, there's just a world full of people out there, and people need love, people need messages, people need care, people need support. And when you think about that and you look around you at the people around you and you start thinking about what you would like to give them in terms of love, support, messages, there's always something to do. So that's what keeps me busy.
Mm. What is your biggest accolade?
Mm, I think my biggest accolade is people, once again, people who come up to me and tell me that they are inspired by what I do or that they made a decision using the inspiration or advice that I offered in my poetry.
Mhm.
That's my biggest flex.
Mm. What is your creative process like as a podcast host?
Mm, that's a very good question. So the first thing to understand is that my creative process doesn't end. I try and live a creative life. I try to cultivate a creative perspective. So I keep my eyes open for inspiration.
Mhm.
I never stop. So even if I'm not actually writing or actually recording in the studio, I'm thinking about Gloria after the interview, thinking, wow, what an interesting young lady. And then that might inspire something. Or I meet someone when I'm living my day-to-day life, if I'm getting furniture for my house, and I'm really interested by the owner of the furniture store, which is a true story. I met a young man who has a furniture store who I find inspirational. So I don't know how that's going to come out in the podcast, but I keep my creative receptors, my ability to receive creative inspiration, I keep that open. And then eventually I sit down and I try and commit to a story. I try and organize that into episodes that are 20 to 25 minutes long. And then I try and make that um, immersive with sound design and music.
Has there ever been a point in your career where basically the inspiration stopped? Maybe just like
Hmm.
a minute or something where you just felt, wait, what? Like your inspiration
Yeah,
gone.
yeah, that's real as well. There are times where I've got to push it. I've got to force myself. It does not come naturally. One thing I've noticed is that when I haven't actually tried to relax, when I've been neglecting myself, I haven't taken the time to give my mind or my body what it needs. Sometimes you need to do a bit of exercise. Sometimes you need to go for a walk. Sometimes you need to have social time with the people that you love. I've noticed over the years that when I don't do those things, that's when creatively I hit a bit of a wall. So, being a grown up, sometimes you don't have the time to do everything that you want. And that's when you need something else. It's not discipline. Sorry, it's not inspiration, it's discipline. So even in those moments where you feel tired and you don't really feel like the inspiration is flowing, what I got into the habit of doing in my teen years was just forcing myself to write something. And my advice to you or to anyone that finds themselves in that situation, you're not always gonna love the first thing you write. That's okay. By God's grace, there will be more days, more minutes, more hours to work on this stuff. But if you discipline your mind to putting something down and you hold on to the hope that you'll be able to improve it, that is how you always keep the door open for inspiration,
Mm.
creative wise.
And is this different from your creative process as a writer?
It is, it is. So my creative process as a podcaster is it involves a lot of different things. It involves writing. It involves thinking about the story, even when you're not sure what the words of the story are. Like I said, I might think about you. I might think about the young man that ran the furniture store that I met recently. Um, so creatively, I'm trying to do a lot of different things. I'm tying together different ideas. But when it comes to writing, now that's about the language and that's about my tone. Do I want to be jokey? Do I want to be super serious? Do I want to sound like I'm just giving you facts? Or do I want to sound like I'm also giving you my opinion? That is a little different. And that involves what I just described. Write something and then over time revisit it. And then you'll be able to decide with a bit of perspective, is my tone right? Is the language right?
Can you describe a style? Yeah, can you describe your style, your creative process, and how it has evolved?
Mm, Okay, so at the start of my podcast, my creative process was I'm going to react to whatever is happening in my life at the time. Whatever information I receive, whatever experiences I have, whatever interactions I observe. And then I got a bit more into I got back into my educational journey. I started reading a lot. And in the last season of my podcast, my creative process changed because I was trying to explain stuff that I'd learned. I wasn't just reacting to experiences that I had. So that was a little bit different. And right now, I am I'm trying to return to the first thing. I'm trying to because I've got two kids now. I've got a beautiful wife, beautiful marriage. Um, and these are things that I want. Going back to that thing about being interested in people and wishing the best for people. I want people to have some of the love and some of the, what's the word, growth that I've experienced in my life. And I know there are a lot of young people who have not gone through these things yet. Now that I want to inspire people about these transitions and how I found love in my marriage and how I'm developing as a father, because I want to talk about that. Now I got to go back to my original creative process of making art out of what is in front of me.
And how did you react to these changes?
Well, the first of all, I gave myself time to adapt. So it can be difficult trying to write about things that you haven't processed yet. So I got married about almost 4 years ago. I became a father 2 years ago. And now we've got two kids. I had another baby at the start of this year. We had another baby. Shouts out to my beautiful wife. And that's these are big changes. Like overnight, your life changes. The time that you have to yourself reduces a little bit. You have new human beings in your life that you are learning and that you need to dig deep within yourself to provide for. Not just provide material or physical things, you got to provide attention, love. You got to apply your mind, you got to provide ideas. So that was what I was focusing on when these changes happened. And the more I found my way, the more I was able to write about them.
Hmm. How do you balance your family life with your professional life? As you just told us, you have two children, a wife, and you've got a podcast and you're writing. So how do you balance it?
These are great questions, man. And I'm glad that you're thinking about them early in your life because it is a lot about visualizing what you want. So I always wanted a marriage and a family. Mm, I didn't know what the reality would be like because I had a career that was very full on. So how I manage it is that I try and pay attention to the needs of all these responsibilities. So a marriage, it's not just something that falls out of the sky. It's something that you build. And if you're building it, not just building, you're living it, you need to respond to what it needs. Because it's not just all going to be about what's convenient or easy for me. For example, if I like to have a lie-in in the morning, but for my marriage, I need to have conversations with my wife every single day, and we're losing hours in a day because I'm just sleeping too much, then I need to adapt and I need to figure out how I can get enough sleep while still being able to have good conversations with my wife and have some good social time with her as well. With my children, I got one son, one daughter. Um, they have different personalities. I have to figure out how I show them love in a way that they can feel it, and how I discipline them, and how I um, maintain a presence in their lives, even though I'm very busy. So all of those things just they teach you. They teach you like what you got to do, and they change you. And if you allow yourself to put other people first, the people that matter the most, your family, then hopefully you'll change for the better.
Now, what advice would you give someone just starting as an author, host, or musician?
I'll say tell the truth. Tell the truth. Um, and think about the person that you're becoming.
Mm.
I have seen a lot of people that have released art into the world that they regret because at the time, and I've had moments like this as well. At the time, they were in one place, but then they moved on and they became a different person or they developed a different perspective. That happens to me less and less because over the years, I've just become more intentional about what I am putting out. So, for example, now that I am in this family man era, I am intentionally thinking, how do I present these changes in my life? And I got that idea from what I didn't see. I saw a lot of people that built an audience or gained an audience from talking about difficult things and hard things. And then when their lives improved, they didn't really share that good news with their audience. So it becomes a bit of a cloud of negativity. So if you're starting your writing journey, you have to start with honesty, you know, and you should constantly think about who am I becoming? Because that decides what you're putting out into the world.
Mm. Can you tell us about a project you are currently working on and what you hope to achieve?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I am working on another season of my podcast. I hope to share everything that I'm learning. I hope to inspire, um, and I hope to do more creative stuff that has never been done before. That's always my aim. I'm looking a bit at music as well. I used to love making music. When I moved over to podcasting, I neglected it, but it's always been a passion of mine. So I'm hoping that we can make some good music that all the family can enjoy. I love bringing families together. I think that's underrated. It's a very important thing that art can do. Um, and I guess I'm continuing to learn. I'm still in education. I'm doing a research degree, and it is all about how we can use Black music and Black culture to create a system of benefit, lo growth, love, healing, development that is more than just money. So I'm trying to learn that too.
And how long do you take it will take? How long do you think it will take to get the next season up and running?
Give me another year.
Mm.
Yeah, give me another year.
How do you handle criticism or negative feedback?
Okay, so earlier I was talking about the needs of my family or the needs of my responsibilities. And one of those responsibilities is my relationship with the public. I have an image and I have a presence in public life. And with that comes responsibilities. So just like with family, if you care about these things, you should put yourself to the side, put your ego to the side, you know? So if you get feedback that is that doesn't feel nice, try and think about it from a perspective that's not you. Try and be objective and say, okay, if I didn't know this person and they said or did XYZ, how would I feel? And then try and empathize, try and listen to the feedback that's coming your way. And times when I've done that, I've learned things. I really have seen mistakes that I've made. Sometimes I've apologized. Um, but there are times when you don't agree. You just don't agree with the feedback people are coming at you with. And even in those moments, I think it's still best to be humble and not take it too seriously, as in don't feel like you have to prove your perspective or your intentions to anyone. And just, yeah, you never know. You might see it differently one day. You might not. It's not the end of the world if you don't agree with all your critics.
And what do you consider the most essential qualities for success as an author, host, or musician?
Author, host, musician. You have to be creative. You really have to be creative. Even if your work doesn't sound creative, you have to be creative about at least how you're going to put it out there into the world. If we're talking about success, you got to be clear. What's your definition of success? I don't know if you mean money or if you mean audience size or if you mean impact, but generally people find all of those things to be markers of success. So you decide what you want and you decide how you're gonna how you're gonna try and pursue that. If you have your own code, your own values that you stick by, and you try to be creative about it, and you work hard, sometimes people feel like I don't say that enough, but yeah, you got to work hard. Don't even bother listening to my advice if you're not prepared to work very, very hard.
Mm.
But yeah, that's pretty much the secret.
Can you tell us about mistakes you made in your career and what you learned from it?
Sometimes I've talked about things without thinking about them from other perspectives. That is a mistake that I made. I think I made it more when I was younger. The older I get, the more I try not to do that. Um, what else? What else? Um, Rushing, not planning, uh, uh, not planning an important decision carefully. Um, Sometimes taking myself for granted, like I was saying earlier, neglecting my own mental or physical health, or not celebrating the work that I've done enough so that I take it for granted. I might work very hard on something and then I just release it without much effort. And then it doesn't reach everyone who really would have liked to know about it. So these are mistakes that I'm constantly learning from because sometimes they can be habits that you have to work on over a long period of time. But I've learned a lot. Every mistake I make is a lesson.
Mm. Did you realize this mistake, the mistakes you're making yourself, or did someone have to tell you, George, you're releasing music that's may some people out there may not feel the
Mm,
connection with it, or did you just
yeah,
yourself?
a lot of it was feedback, and a lot of that feedback actually came from my wife. She's my wife now, but a lot of the time when she gave me this feedback, we weren't even an item. We were not even a couple. We were just really good friends, and I could always trust her feedback, which is one of the things that made me realize that I think I want to be with her for life.
Hmm. What role has mentorship played in your career, and who has been a particular influential mentor?
Um, Mentorship is huge, man. So my parents have always mentored me. They've always given me meaningful advice. So they are the first, and they get all the credit. My mom literally, I've talked about it in some of my poetry. My mom was my tutor at one point when I was in primary school. Um, my dad, to this day, I sent my dad a message last night thanking him for a voice note that he sent me because he was just giving me advice that I feel like was very helpful and was what I needed to hear. Um, I had a basketball coach when I was a teenager who I'm still tight with today because he was a great mentor. He didn't just talk to us about basketball, he talked to us about life, about becoming a man, making decisions, being responsible, finances, business, serving your community. He's a real role model to me. Um, and yeah, just a lot of aunties and uncles like that. I always want to promote the role models around us that are just they're not even famous. They're just good people.
What do you like to do in your spare time other than working and spending time with your family?
What I like to do, I love music. I love going to music events. I love um I love working out where I can. When I became a parent, it became a little harder, but it's very, fitness is important. What else? Um, I love learning creative stuff. I took my nephews to a creative experience, an immersive experience the other day. I love that stuff.
How do you deal with pressure and the expectations of your fans and readers?
My personal my personal secret is that my expectations are so high that they can't really I've never found anyone that expects more of me than I expect of myself. I'm trying to think. And I also separate the expectations of those who don't know me from the reasonable expectations of me and those in my life. People that might want, for example, people wanted an album from me for years, for 10 years now, and I haven't released an album, but I understand that that has not matched my output. I can't make the podcast that I've been making, and be in the studio cooking up songs. Sometimes you have to choose a path and commit to it and give it everything you've got. And
Mm,
once you've satisfied that journey, then you can go back to the other thing that you wanted to do and do it properly.
mm,
And remember, I told you one of the lessons I learned was rushing. Don't rush. Just do what you're doing properly and then come to the next task in good time with good energy.
mm,
So, yeah, where people got expectations, if they don't really know what the situation really is, I allow them to have their expectations without affecting me. And generally, I try and hold myself to standards that to the highest standards I can, so I don't feel like I'm wasting time or cutting corners.
mm. Can you describe a moment where you felt you'd made a real difference in the world through your work?
Mm, mm. I return to the earlier answer. Like every time someone comes up to me and tells me they have connected with my work for whatever reason, every time that happens, I feel like I've made a difference in the world. Someone just messaged me just before this interview saying thank you for what you said in another interview that you did. Like it was a I was talking about Africa, African liberation, Burkina Faso, on a podcast called In My Opinion. And someone messaged me and said, this is great. Every time I get a comment on YouTube that is like, thank you for putting out this material, I'm telling you, man, it's people that let me know that I'm making a difference. Nothing material, nothing, no award matches up to that.
Mm. What would be your dream project or collaboration?
Dream project. So I would love to work with creatives, mainly poets from um across the Pan-African world, yeah, but starting in Uganda and connecting with everyone or my network back in the UK. I would love to join them in a musical, artistic storytelling project that, oh, it's in my mind. I just haven't locked in yet, but I feel like that's coming one day.
Mm. Name one item you cannot live without, whether being a musician, host, or author.
Mm. Anything that plays music, anything. And I can't live without music.
Mm. What do you hope your legacy will be?
All right. Here's what I hope, Gloria. I hope, I hope that I inspire people to use art to educate and improve the world.
Mm.
Educate and improve themselves first,
Mhm.
and hopefully the world.
Yeah. Is there anything else you would like to share that we may or may have not covered?
No, I think your questions were very good. And I'm really looking forward to this coming out. So